Okay, Mallory.
Hi.
Hi, hello. Thank you for coming today. So about the your show current location, I have several questions for you.
Okay.
First, what's challenging about bringing this script to life?
Well, it's very spare and very simple. And so sometimes things that are simple are really hard to do well.
Mhm.
It's challenging maybe to figure out how this audience might receive it. And how to stage it in a way that creates the most connection as possible, maybe.
Thank you. So there are so much Japanese culture and like so much Japanese elements in it. And how do you think that you are going to bring that to America in this production?
Well, I mean, I think it'll be clear, obviously, that he's a Japanese writer, and that Japan is mentioned in the piece, and that it's about Japan in a way. So I think that's there, but I think it's also what's also there is like we're not attempting to act like we're Japanese. We're whatever that means. I don't think. So it's just like that's one layer of what's going on, and then the other layer is that it's a contemporary piece performed by a very diverse group of students from all over. I mean, so I think it's just like two layers that the audience is gonna kind of have to put together and make sense of that on their own. Yeah, so I think that the concerns that the characters have, that they express a certain uncertainty about what's going on and what to believe, and I've worked with Okada a lot in teaching, and I find that his writing has a great connection to young people because I think he started out by working with his colleagues as young people, and he writes really well for characters who are younger. And so I've always found that there's a kind of connection that even across cultural divide, there's a kind of connection because he's speaking to the sort of frustrations and the uncertainties that young people have in their lives about their identity, about how to make a life, about how to think about the future. And I think that his writing in particular kind of speaks directly to that experience. So I think that's why I wanted to do the play here. And I'd also worked with students, so I knew on the material last semester, so I kind of could see their connection to it. And I thought it was very interesting how they connected to the material.
What do you like the most about the script and this production?
What do I like the most about it? I like its simplicity. I like its poeticness. I like it as an allegory. The aspect of it as allegory is really intriguing because it mixes sort of the idea of allegory with his kind of fairly pedestrian sensibility, which is unique to me. I've not really experienced the way those two things can fit together in that way. I think what he's trying to get at, what he's trying to do in terms of have these two simultaneous realities kind of coexisting is both a really great challenge, and what makes it very unique is that he never really sides on one side or the other. The point is to kind of to keep us in this state of uncertainty, and that both and the potential that both positions could be valid, could be right, and I think that's I think it's refreshing that he is really trying to maintain those two positions, and not it's not a piece about judgment, although it reveals the way we judge each other. But I think ultimately he's trying to figure out how to reveal this state that we're in constantly. Because I think often we feel like, oh, there's these two things going on, but I'm right and my reality is right. And so we never seem to be able to, in a way, accept the world as it is, which is that two things exist and we all have the right to believe what we believe, but we have to coexist in some way. And we can't just think, well, I'm right and it would be better if no one else, the people who don't agree with me, don't exist, you know. So in that it's really unique because he's doing that formally. It is not just sort of talking about it. It's actually the play is structured that way.
Okay. So who must see this production?
Who must see this production? I also like all the students. I think they're doing a really great job, and I think it's yeah, they're just I'm very intrigued by them as people engaging the material and how distinct and different they each are and how much they bring of their own cultural background to this piece, and how the piece is like they talk all the time in the piece about this village that they all come from, and for me it's a really interesting mix of performers who are from a very diverse background, and for me I'm really intrigued by the village that they evoke for the audience. You know, if they did come from the same place, like what an interesting place that is. Tell me again your question. The next question.
The next who must see the production?
Well, everyone, of course. I don't know. I mean, I think his work. I find Okada's work is very. It kind of opens up that sort of space for this sort of shy, introspective kind of person, and this way of communicating, which is not necessarily the most direct, the most outgoing, the most. So in a way, it is not it doesn't have that like theater thing where you mostly see is about like big, bold personalities kind of like coming and showing you what they got, you know. And I find that it's a piece that is much more about the sort of introspective, shy character trying to make sense of things, trying to explain what's going on in their own head. And I don't know, I think it kind of fits the character of the student body that I see here, which is often sort of science-y sorts of students trying to make sense of the world, but really curious. And a lot of the students that we have here who are coming to the theater because they're also studying these other things, and the theater is the place where they can come to sort of like actualize those ideas and those things that are going on in their heads. But they're not often the kind of student that would go to like a theater program who's more like, hey, here I am, you know. So it's a really interesting, I think it's an interesting piece for Stony Brook for me in that way, because it reflects much more of the tenor of like the way I feel about a lot of the students here who are trying to work things through, but they're not exhibitionists, you know, in that way. So I think I'm hoping that people who are interested in the sciences will come and try to understand how a sort of scientific idea can give way to a seemingly, I think, unrelated allegory about, you know, uncertainty
Mhm.
and the future of, you know, how we move forward in society.
Thank you for
Okay.
coming today.
Sure.